No, I love attention. I mean, there's a camera on me right now. I'm happy.
I put so much on the line for every game that I'm in.
Welcome to the AUDL's Cross Coast Challenge. Tonight we're live from Seattle, Washington, under the shadow of the Space Needle. We're inside Memorial Stadium on a cool spring evening, and we're set for the 2-1 Seattle Cascades and the 2-0 Pittsburgh Thunderbirds, and we welcome you in, everybody, with Ian Toner. I am Evan Lepler, delighted to have you with us. This is a fascinating matchup for several reasons. I think first and foremost, Ian, Pittsburgh and Seattle don't see each other very often on the Ultimate Field.
These interdivisional rivalries are what the AUDL fans have been clamoring for. They've been speculating about the strength of one division versus another. Tonight is where the rubber meets the road.
And for the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds, they're trying to stay undefeated. Seattle trying to bounce back from their frustrating one-point loss last week. The Pittsburgh Thunderbirds are unbeaten with the help of their superstar, Tyler DiGirolamo, but some breaking news at the start of the night. He's questionable, and it's unclear whether he's going to play. He tweaked a groin earlier this week.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see that because I don't mean to use this term lightly. Tyler DiGirolamo is a game changer. He's someone who dictates your top defensive matchup. He gives you a lot more flexibility when you're calling an offensive set or a play. It's going to be challenging for Pittsburgh if he's not out there on their offense.
Tough for Pittsburgh and Ultimate fans to see because he missed all of last year with a separate knee injury. He put on the sneakers after trying out the cleats. It appears like he's not going to play. With or without him, we knew they would be counting on his former college teammate, Max Thorne. What do they need Max Thorne to do extra tonight without TD?
Well, first of all, it's great to see Max back in the fold. He's been away from the game for a year, coming back off of a meniscus tear. He's going to be that cog, that distributor who constantly gets the disc and finds the next open receiver. He's going to shoulder that much more of the load for the Pittsburgh offense.
He's had 11 assists in Pittsburgh's first 2 games. He'll be in the handler set most likely for the Thunderbirds, although David Hogan, their coach, was saying how great of a deep cutter he is as well. Let's flip it to Seattle for a moment. This team lost by 1 to the San Jose Spiders last week. Their captain, Mark Burton, was not pleased with the way they played, but he is pleased with the talent he has around him, despite some of the unknown names that we'll get to know tonight.
Well, first of all, credit to the Spiders for pulling off that last-second victory last week. But Mark Burton, again, is one of those players who's trying to establish some continuity between the Cascades' run to the finals last year and the new generation filling up their roster this year.
First team All-AUDL in 2016. Mark Burton still has Donnie Clark to throw to. They've got quite a tandem downfield for the Cascades. It's week 2 of the AUDL's Cross Coast Challenge, week 6 of the AUDL season, and the plastic flies here in Seattle when we come back.
Mazer with the flick hunt, looking for Stanley Peterson in the end zone. It's Stanley with the layout grab.
Air Force One.
We've got 7 on the line here at Memorial Stadium in Seattle. It is a chilly night. There's a slight breeze, but more importantly, it is cool. It's in the low 50s, could cool down even more into the high 40s by the time the night is over. Pittsburgh Thunderbirds flew in last night, ready to pull. They'll be on defense at the outset. A defensive line of Anson Repperman, Kenny Ferdella, Jack Heffron, Alex Thomas, Jake Rovner, John Diamichis, and Xavier Maxtad. Seattle's starting offense includes Donnie Clark, the 18-year-old John Randolph, the veteran 34-year-old Adam Simon, with Will Chen, Mark Burton, Cameron Bailey, and Brad Hauser. Seattle in the blue, and the Cascades and Thunderbirds both returning to the field after a 1-point game last week. Adam Simon will pick up the disc. He'll be marked by Ferdella.
Not every day you see the opening pull of a game sail out of bounds, Evan.
The puller has one job, and he didn't do it, as Burton looks over the top, seeking Clark. Incomplete. There was certainly contact, but John Diamichis will get credit for the D from behind.
And I think that's a great no call by that referee. Both players kind of went straight up, and Diamichis just got his hand on the plastic.
Maxstad picks up underneath to Diamichis. This is Anson reprimand. Thunderbirds beat Indy last week as Will Chen lays out to get the disc back for Seattle. Simon quickly looking long, and it's ripped away. Defended well by Pittsburgh's Alex Thomas.
Alex Thomas, you're gonna see playing with a small cast on his hand. He has a UCL injury that may require surgery after this game.
Maxstad's throw looking on the under, sails too high, and Burton intercepts. Sloppy first point for both teams.
You know, Evan, you mentioned that there's a slight breeze, but it's just stiff enough to make those seemingly easy 15 or 20-yard throws challenging.
And the Cascades punch it in. Randolph to Hauser. And Seattle in front 1-0. That first point took 94 seconds off the clock. 10:26 left in the first.
You see Burton surveying the field here, getting the disc back to Chen, who initially got the block. And this is just a cascade of breaks, throws down the break side that the Thunderbirds were not able to stop.
Well, this might be your first chance to watch John Randolph. And he's a guy that certainly, as Will Chen lays out to get the disc back for Seattle.
You mentioned that there's a slight breeze, but it's just
bad enough to hear us once, to hear us twice.
Those poor souls on the other end of the screen.
John Randolph, a member of the U.S. Junior National Team, just turned 18 this past December. Graduate of Lakeside High School here in Seattle. A lot of folks in this community very excited for what kind of player he can be. Max Thorne with his first touch on the Pittsburgh O-line. Again, if you joined us late, Tyler DiGirolamo, Pittsburgh's superstar, tweaked a groin at practice on Wednesday night, was questionable coming in, warmed up. Does not seem like he's gonna try to go tonight. But it's interesting, last week, DiGirolamo had just a case of the drops. He had 3 drops uncharacteristically in their game against Indy. And down the stretch, he played D-line. And Pittsburgh coach David Hogan said the fourth quarter last week might have been Pittsburgh's best offensive quarter of the season. As Pat Earls dials up a huge backhand, looking for Thorne. Nice pressure from Seattle's Henry Fan. I think we're gonna see a bunch of those big shots from both sides tonight.
No one has been gun shy so far.
Just over the outstretched arms of Mark Fedorenko. Khalif El-Salam, he expected to be guarding DiGirolamo tonight. He's typically been an O-line guy. They wanted to give him the task of guarding Tyler. Maybe that plan will change as Seattle starts off with a break. Tommy Lee punctuates the point with a score.
After that turnover, you saw Henry Fan just kind of take control, use a lot of handler movement to get the disc going. And he even got things started here with this block on the deep shot to Max Thorne. That's a great matchup. Those are 2 similarly sized players. You typically think of Henry Fan as more of a handler defender, but doing his best to play above his size, and We see Matt Russell finding Tommy Lee in the end zone there for the break, and Seattle with an early 2-0 lead.
Tommy Lee, one of the strategic leaders of that Seattle D-line. Tad Whistle picks up the pull to Xavier Maxtad. Reprimand on the under, defended by El Salam, looking deep, intended for Mogielski. And he waited for it, but could not haul it in.
You see Tad Whistle hustling all the way from the handler set to make a bid and just couldn't quite get there.
We apologize for the technical issue with the lack of a clock on the graphic. We'll keep you updated throughout the night. 8:20 to go in the first quarter as Whistle lays out again, comes up with a D this time.
Those are the kind of plays that you want Tad Whistle to make. He's an experienced veteran. He's got that field awareness, that IQ and composure, able to turn around in the lane and make the block.
Pittsburgh puts it home to make it 2-1. Kenny Ferdella with this goal, and Tad Whistle, you said it, he's a veteran trying to bring energy, good decisions, and if he can make some athletic plays too, that's a bonus.
Saw him coming off the field there yelling, "Not gonna fool me." He's seen the handler clear and flash into the lane once or twice before in his day. And after that deep turnover, he's able to salvage the offensive point.
In a game like this, when these are two teams that don't know each other that well, how long do they stray from their initial game plan? At what point do they start to make adjustments based upon things they notice?
You know, I think that's highly dependent on how reactive the coaching staff is, right? I think there are some coaches who trust their game plans a little more and kind of appreciate and have that conviction to stick with their scripted first 15 plays or so.
Bryson Simon Fox looking long, and it looked like Hauser was going to make the play, but at the last moment, it was Reprimand who came in there to knock it away. All week long, I just had the feeling that there'll be multiple runs of multiple goals in this game. A byproduct of the frenetic style that each team plans to play.
Either team afraid to air it out early here.
There is a collision downfield and a Pittsburgh player. That is, I believe, Jack Heffron, shaken up.
Let's give it up for Jack Heffron.
Heffron, a graduate of Notre Dame. He didn't start playing Ultimate till he was a senior there, so he's still relatively inexperienced. But a guy that David Hogan and the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds are very excited about his potential as a young player. They're already a man down. Tyler DiGirolamo expected to play. If they don't get Heffron back, then they're down to 18 after traveling with 20. This is Bailey to Burton. He rarely hesitates. That one works. Just shy of the goal line, and Hauser finds Chen in the end zone. 3-1 Seattle. 6:54 remaining in the first.
Be interested to see how much longer these teams are comfortable taking those quick shots after a turnover, because it's resulted in a very high volume turnover first couple of points, and at least for Pittsburgh with a smaller roster, that those longer points tend to grind on you and make the fatigue that much more of a factor earlier and earlier in a game.
Will Chen obviously made one of the greatest throws in the history of the AUDL last year in Madison. End of the third quarter, championship weekend semifinals. And after a Hussein Carnegie D, Will Chen's 80-yard put through a double team found Matt Russell in a play that helped to propel the Seattle Cascades past Madison into the title game.
A play that I'm sure Radicals fans don't want to be reminded of.
Nice job using the width of the field from Pittsburgh. Pat Earls looking to the end zone, and that's right on target for Ethan Beardsley.
And that's Pat Earl's favorite throw. An outside in flick, right up the line. That's his bread and butter.
Ethan Beardsley is a guy that can do some damage too. A couple of years ago, he scored 72 goals, which is in the top 5 all time in a single season in the league.
Another product of that Pittsburgh and Sabanur system that has such a heavy influence on the entire Pittsburgh Ultimate community as a whole.
How would you characterize that system, that culture? I mean, you've never been in it yourself, but from the outside, what does that Pittsburgh culture represent in the Ultimate community?
Well, of course, an Sabanur alum would want me to say a brotherhood, because that's how they define themselves.
A championship brotherhood. They won back-to-back titles, of course, at the college level, 2012, 2013.
No, I would say that they are a very hardworking, fundamentally sound program. They expect a lot of even newcomers to their system, and they're not afraid to push each other to kind of reach that next level.
Midway through the first quarter here at Memorial Stadium, the sun trying to break through the scattered clouds. This is Burton. Again, he's always looking long. He wants Clark. And Clark elevated perhaps a split second too soon. Pittsburgh, though, going to get called for interference. Aaron Buss. Guilty unless he can convince Donnie Clark to change the call, and it appears Donnie agrees with the official. Referees tonight, Barney Ahouse, John Bartlett, Samantha Pittman, and Matt Tasharon with Eric Getz, the 5th official. Clark with a stall count rising, finds space and hits Hauser. Good start for Brad Hauser, 2 goals and an assist in the first 6 minutes and change here in Seattle.
Surprised to see that foul call come through. It looked like Donnie Clark just kind of went up and missed it. I wasn't sure if, at least on first glance, it did not look like Buss put a forearm in his back or made significant contact, but clearly there was something that the referee saw and that Clark felt if he didn't invoke the integrity rule.
I'm with you. Also telling that Buss did not
protest
too vehemently. El Salam to pull. You got a quick look at John Doherty there, who's from Ireland, a member of the Irish national team who has come to play with the Cascades this year and has some potential to be a game changer as well. And they're going deep on Doherty, testing him against Fedorenko, and Pittsburgh's big man, Mark Fedorenko, comes down with a score for the Thunderbirds.
And that's an efficient offensive point for Pittsburgh. With this small squad, you want to see a few more of those. At the same time, you do want some time for your defense to catch their breath, but the less energy that your offense can use, the better.
Max Thorne winding up the backhand. Doherty coming off a game in which she had some trouble guarding San Jose's Jackson Stearns downfield. You learn as a defender in the AUDL, it's a tough job.
Lots of space vertically and laterally. Interesting to see Fedorenko go up for the clap catch, Sky.
Yeah.
Not something you see every day. And, you know, speaking of Doherty being a member of the Irish national team, there was a late addition to the Cascades roster, Daniel Montoya, a veteran of the Colombian national team, getting his first AUDL reps tonight.
Yep, filling in for Sam Harkness, who's inactive tonight. Montoya came to Seattle to try out for the team. He made it. He'll be out there in number 70. And that's great handler pressure. It was Repperman who is now taking off deep, and that disc will not float enough.
Well, you know that's what Xavier Maxtat wants to do whenever there's a turnover. Just pick up, grip it, and rip it.
That has been his style for a long time. One of the first Pittsburgh practices, David Hogan was telling me Maxtat threw basically this upside down cross field kind of no look throw in a scrimmage, and it wasn't to anybody. And he looked at the coach and said, "Is it okay if I throw that?" And Hogan said, "Well, look, we need to figure out what the right chances are to take." But I think Hogan has developed more of a trust with Maxted than you might expect in just a couple of weeks, as again Seattle wants Hauser. Diamichis defending, and not much he can do, just shy of the goal line. And wow, that caught Bailey a little by surprise, but Cam Bailey has the score for Seattle. 3:33 to go in the first.
Great job here by Hauser, just holding position as the Huck came back to him and almost kept trailing away as well. Not much that Diamichis could do unless he wanted to go up and over him. I'm not so sure Cam Bailey made it into the end zone there with his 2 plant feet, but I'll say the referees were much closer than we were up here in the booth.
Brad Hauser's on his way to having one heck of a birthday weekend. Brad will be 26 on Monday. He's got a couple goals and a couple assists the first 8.5 minutes tonight. 5-3 Seattle, 3.5 remaining in the first. John Mast, young man who's been excellent throwing the disc so far this year. Mast entering today, 76 throws, 76 completions in Pittsburgh's first 2 games.
Yeah, John Mast actually learned to throw and perfected his throwing form exclusively by watching footage of Simon Montague, a former Cascades handler, and his throwing motion.
That's a tough break right there. A drop from Beardsley on a throw from Earls that found him right in the breadbasket. Henry Fan with a quick reset. Pittsburgh switches and Seattle finds El Salam. Tommy Lee. Henry Fan pops up the flick near the sideline, and El Salam keeps it alive. Matt Russell. Sam Pickle into the end zone. Bryson Simon Fox has the score. Beg your pardon, that's Robbie Farwell, who has the Cascades break, and what a turnaround there. You had Beardsley with the disc in his hands in the end zone, could not hang on. Seattle, like clockwork, tic-tac-toes its way down the field the full 80.
That is a tough break in every sense of the word and the phrase for the Thunderbirds. And, you know, I will say, to the Thunderbirds' credit, they played some great defense for the maybe first 20 seconds of that point when they pushed the Cascades back further into their own end zone. But once they kind of broke through that midfield barrier, it was strike cut after four-side cut after strike cut. And you'd like to see some sharper defense when you're working to get the disc back.
There you see Tyler DiGirolamo chatting with Pat Earls, former college teammates, pro teammates. And you got a feel for Tyler DiGirolamo, who again missed the entire AUDL season last year after putting up numbers in 2015 that frankly we had not seen before. Set the league record for assists, which still stands. He set the league record for plus minus, which was broken by Jacksonville's Misha Freistadter in 2016.
And Tyler was dealing with patellar tendonitis.
Whistle winds it up, and it's right on target. Kenny Ferdella with the score. Pittsburgh D-line goes on the field and works it down nice and easily.
Whistle walks off the field with an attitude of, that's how it's done, boys. Trying to spark some life into his team that was a little demoralized after that last point.
Second assist of the season for Whistle, who had 13 of them each of the last 2 years. Whistle out of Edinburgh University has made a name for himself in the ultimate media realm as a fine writer and a clever podcaster.
In the Fields, an alternative podcast, you might say. They have a great rivalry with the other Ulti-World podcast, Deep Look.
They're different flavors, and you can enjoy both of them. We're under 2 minutes to go here in the first quarter. Seattle took a 2-0 lead at the start and has led throughout. This is the 18-year-old Randolph. Really nice throw. Simon ruled just shy of the end zone. Simon called for the stall. In the time in which he was not sure if he was in the end zone and had to reset the pivot foot was part of the stall.
That definitely cost him. I don't know if he mentally factored that one in as he was walking back to the line. You see Maxstat trying to rip right away again.
It's an interesting matchup there between Simon and Maxstat, two guys from different eras who have been great in their own ways. Obviously Maxstat, a young player. David Hogan is yelping timeout from the sidelines. And they do recognize the call with 1:27 on the clock. Hogan in his third year as the head coach of the Thunderbirds. And this is a team that went 12-2 in 2015 in their first season. Lost to Madison in the Midwest Division Championship game. Last year, they went 10-4 the regular season, but still made it back into that Western Championship game where they lost to Madison again. This year, they're 2-0, and they've got a pretty tough stretch coming up. This begins a 5-game road trip over the course of a long stretch. Their next home game is not until June 17th. And 2 weeks from today, Pittsburgh will play at Madison for the first time this year.
You see Pittsburgh making the most of this timeout opportunity, subbing out some of their defensive bodies who may be a little more tired and may not be quite as capable with the disc, and putting in some more offensively oriented players to try and secure this break and pull back within one.
It's definitely a bit of a late arriving crowd here in Seattle. There's so much stuff going on around the stadium here, around the Needle. There's different fairs, there's different food trucks, and it just always seems like there's a festival going on in Seattle.
We see a zipper play here where the first two cutters peel off the front of the stack, leaving Max Thorne open underneath to come out of that timeout.
Old reliable zipper play has been run for decades. Thorne flicks it to Earls, who rifles it to the end zone, and that's on target for a Pittsburgh break.
Such a tough throw to stop. You know, it's technically a break throw, but someone like Earls, who has speed, quick release, proficiency in finding those narrow lanes, really challenging for someone like El Salam or anyone to put an effective mark on.
Just over a minute to go in the first quarter. You know, Pat Earls is a guy that when he gets the disc in his hands, he is always looking to make a play.
He's a shooter. Wouldn't go so far as to call him a volume shooter, because I do think he has some judicious nature to his decision making.
Well, when he's played for Pittsburgh, he has racked up the assists. Just a handful of games 2 years ago, he had 61 assists in 9 games. Last year he only played 4 games, but he had 7 assists per contest. And that disc hit the ground. 45 seconds to go in the quarter, and Pittsburgh looking to tie it up. Whistle to Hammonds. Will Chen bouncing on the mark and comes up with the point block. Phenomenal defense from Will Chen.
I don't think Will gets enough credit as a critical part of this Cascades team.
Great energy, obviously very skilled. Clock down to 12 seconds here in the first quarter. Burton's throw to Randolph, tough one-handed catch. 6 seconds on the clock for Burton. Down to 4, 3, 2, and into the end zone with 1 second left to Randolph.
Mark Burton sneaks it in, and John Randolph with the score as we come to the end of the first period of play.
That's such a tough position for the dump defender to be in.
Fans, please welcome Mario O'Brien to the stage.
You're working to frustrate the handler, push him either upfield or backfield. When you're that close to the end zone, as we get another look here at that fantastic block from Chen, you know, coaches often tell players, don't lunge on the mark. Keep your feet moving, stay active. And because he was constantly moving there and didn't have his weight shifted all the way to one side, he was able to make that play.
It was great awareness by Randolph, realizing that Burton didn't really have anybody, and he just bolted to that pylon for the catch. There's a second or two left on the first quarter clock. And Pittsburgh certainly has some size, even without DiGirolamo. When you talk about Beardsley at 6'5", Fedorenko's not small. Repperman is lean and lanky, and Earls can throw it. This is floating and just shy of the end zone. Matt Russell intercepts. So Seattle looked like they were on the brink of seeing the score not again. But El Salam's team with a 7-5 lead after 12 minutes here at Memorial Stadium. 1 down, 3 to go in the AUDL's Cross Coast Challenge tonight. See the young man in the temper jersey. That's Trent Dillon, former Callahan Award winner at Pittsburgh. Was told that he'll be rooting for the Thunderbirds tonight, even though he lives and plays here in Seattle now. Trent Dillon was a great player for University of Pittsburgh for several years, and certainly a guy the Thunderbirds could use tonight. I think the Cascades would take him too. 7-5 is the score after 1, Ian. And I'm curious just to get your general thoughts about how those first 12 minutes transpired.
Well, I think there's no secret that both teams got off to a sloppy start. We saw more turnovers than I think either you or I expected in the first handful of points. Both teams didn't, I would say Pittsburgh missed opportunities more than Seattle did, especially calling that last timeout and turning the disc over after they had put their offense in, and they had the opportunity to tie the game back up at the end of the quarter.
This Pittsburgh team trying to stay undefeated in the Midwest Division. The Madison Radicals, the perennial champ in that division, suffered a loss last week in Minnesota. Madison had its home opener earlier tonight, and about half an hour ago, the Radicals wrapped up a tighter than expected victory. 18-16 was the final score as Madison beat Chicago. Kevin Brown, Colin Camp, Andrew Mechanix, the statistical leaders for the Radicals. A Chicago team that lost at Detroit by 9 last week played Madison really tough tonight.
Hey, but that's the story across the AUDL that we're seeing in these first 6 weeks, right, Evan? Parity is the name of the game. The divisions are getting deeper and deeper. The floor in the bottom of each division is getting more skilled and more talented and providing greater tests for the supposed top-tier teams.
Yeah, last weekend was an epic in terms of the upsets around the league. Not only did you see San Jose go on the road up here in Seattle and Vancouver and get 2 wins, you saw Montreal go into Toronto and win. Second quarter underway. Max Thorne unleashing. And that's tremendous defense downfield. Not a great throw from Thorne, but Russell with another D. He's having a good start.
Yeah, Thorne having to work upwind with that huck.
Looking for El Salam. And Khalif with a clap catch just shy of the goal line. Leaf will get the assist to his college teammate, Henry Fan. Fan and El Salam play at University of Washington, where that program just won its first ever regional title.
Khalif El Salam had a lot to do with that one, scoring 9 goals and, throwing 9 assists and adding 1 goal in the regional championship game against the University of Oregon Ego.
Started with a D from Russell.
Russell's been a solid defensive fixture in the Seattle scene for a number of years now, always taking the toughest downfield matchups and excelling when doing so.
So Seattle begins off the second quarter with a break. Maxstad marked by Randolph, and Xavier Maxstad looking for Anson Repperman. That's a great throw and a great catch just out of the reach of Daniel Montoya.
You know, with no disrespect to Xavier, there's a double-edged sword nature to his playing style, right? There are times when he'll pick up the disc and rip a deep shot to nobody, like we've seen earlier, and then there are times where he'll make a standstill huck to a place where only his receiver can get it, and that's the upside of having him control your offense.
What would you say if your teammate was the guy who was an inch away from the disc?
Oh man, no matter what, I'm running down there, I'm slapping his hand, and I'm telling him that he's gonna get the next one.
Well, it was a great week for Columbian Ultimate, certainly. You were down in Columbia last week for the great TEP tournament, where in a somewhat of a surprise, the USA World Games team lost to the Colombian World Games team in a Universe Point final. Certainly that will help set the stage for the World Games coming up in Poland this July, and a quick mistake there from the Cascades. Maxstad in Pittsburgh with a chance to counter. Not a single guy cut underneath there for Maxstad, so they have to sacrifice about 20 yards to get the reset.
Well, you know, when you pick up the disc and jacket, you kind of set a precedent in your receivers' minds, right?
Heffron calls timeout, and Pittsburgh presumably will get the offense back onto the field.
Yeah, and Evan, you were talking about the Colombian TEP experience. Cannot give enough credit to Mauricio Moore, the Colombian organizer and coach, for what he's done to build the sport of Ultimate and build the national team programs in that community.
Yeah, I got to meet him in London last year at the World Ultimate Guts Championship. Spent a lot of time talking to him before the Colombian women's team played the USA in the finals. And you know, from talking to a few people, I got the sense that the women players on that Colombian team were unbelievable, and some of them are super young.
The There's no secret that Manuela Cardenas may be a top 5 female player in the world at the moment. She has incredible poise, incredible athleticism, throws that not many other women in her division have. I think Mauricio has done an incredible job of developing the depth of talent in both genders in that country.
The International Ultimate Contest will continue to unfold over the coming months. Now we shift back to Pittsburgh's quest for a break. Pat Earls will be marked by Tommy Lee. Quick low swing and a tough diving catch from Marmerstein, who finds Thorne. And he'll sneak that backhand through, rising into the arms of John Mast.
That's a classic Max Thorne shimmy. The very quick slide over to the flick side and then dip that shoulder and release it back to the inside backhand lane. A throw he's thrown a million times as we see this reset here get off the line.
What do you think of this play out of the timeout? It's not really a downfield action, it's just a handler set.
I'm in favor of using the width of the field whenever you can, especially in the pro game here. And I think it places a lot of pressure on the downfield defenders to constantly reposition, right? Because the further the disc moves over to the break side, the more you need to adjust and readjust and examine which angles are dangerous for the thrower and you need to take away.
Last week in the Atlanta-Dallas game, Taylor Pope, my colleague last weekend, was harping on the fact that Atlanta, in his opinion, didn't use the width of the field enough. Hauser shooting, Donnie Clark pursuing. Just shy of the goal line. Clark has his man, Bryson Simon Fox, for the goal. 9-7 Seattle, 10 minutes and change to go in the second quarter.
Yeah, and talking to some of the Seattle leadership before this game, they mentioned that Bryson Simon Fox has been somewhat of a pleasant surprise in terms of his productivity cutting downfield for the Cascades offense. He's been someone who's been able to eat up yardage and be reliable receiver for their various throwers.
And Fox, originally from Minnesota, a pretty serious runner in high school and went to Reed College in Oregon, where he discovered Ultimate as a freshman. He had 4 goals last week against the Spiders. 10-14 remaining in the second quarter. The sun has come out, but it is still a very chilly evening here, exacerbated by the breeze. Not the DC breeze that beat New York Empire by 1 for the 4th straight regular season game. That's a tough reset, but it finds Earls.
And if we could go back and look at that replay after this, Max threw that disc before Pat was even fully looking back at him.
Thorne got the reset, but Earls' bid comes up shy. Fan to Russell. All the way around, using that width, 9:40 and ticking here in the second. That throw caught by El Salam. And then he immediately turfs the backhand, rushed the reset.
That's the old ultimate principle of conservation of greatness. Once you do something great, take a deep breath before you mess something up or steer away from a fundamental.
We've all been there, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Most of us haven't experienced the greatness that El Salam has, though. Or yourself, I should say, winning. How many gold medals do you have on your shelf at home?
I have 2 at the moment. 3, maybe. But
He's lost count. I've got a couple kickball gold medals. Other than that, nothing prize-worthy.
if you want to see a cool medal and trophy collection, you need to work yourself an invite into Bart Watson's trophy room.
I've heard about that.
It's really something to behold.
Al Salam, still very young, trying to build up his own trophy case. Khalif, 23 years old. He'll be 24 in November.
And here's another look at that reset from Thorne to Earls. As we see, tough to tell from that angle, but Earls kind of went up line, and before he even planted and turned back towards the disc, Thorne had put that disc up in the air.
Timeout called on the field. That has to be a byproduct of their chemistry, just so many years playing together. I mean, Pat Earls has said before that he was a baseball player. He hurt his arm pitching, and well, he basically started playing more ultimate because he started hanging out more at the Thorne's house, and that has fostered into a pretty established career in this game. Seattle led 7-5 after one, now 9-7 here in the second as the Cascades, Burton, Bailey, and Chen back on the field along with Randolph, El Salam, Russell, and Hauser. Got Alex Thomas on Mark Burton downfield. Jack Heffron chasing Brad Hauser in the middle of the field.
We see a version of a flood play here with two of the near side cutters.
Oh, tough catch by Burton. Defender Thomas was face guarding him, and Burton found the disc and then found his man in the end zone. Tommy Lee makes it 10-7 Cascades.
Bit of a miscommunication there on that throw from El Salam to Burton, but Burton made the most of it. And that's something that not a lot of receivers know how to do, kind of keep their eyes constantly on the thrower. I think some younger, less experienced cutters kind of focus on putting their head down and turning decisively one direction so that they can turn their defender, and that's what they've been told by their coaches in practice, but there's a certain value for constantly keeping your eye on the thrower as well.
Well, you talk about Mark Burton's game, and it's not his Bo Kittredge-esque athleticism that has made him a great player. With all due respect to Mark's athletic abilities, and they're immense from a baseball background and a basketball background, you don't look at him and think he's Khalif El Salam, and yet he's still able to produce at a pretty impeccable level in this league.
We see a travel call here on Pat Earls that's going to set the Thunderbirds back.
Travel called on Pittsburgh.
Travel last year, of course, was a turnover, one of the rule changes in the offseason, and, well, perhaps Pat thinks the travel rule shouldn't have been changed.
Pat's thrown that Blady flick huck turnover once or twice in his career, having been trusted to take many shots for his college team.
Fedorenko stealing the disc right back and then shooting it to Earls in the end zone. He dropped it, and he won't have a second chance.
You think there's something going on in that end zone? Because that's the second drop we've seen from a Thunderbird receiver.
Beardsley had one earlier, now Earls. It's definitely a swirly wind here at Memorial Stadium. Now you look at a flag at one part of the stadium, it's blowing in a different direction than a flag 50 yards away.
Well, see, this is something I've wondered about ever since Ultimate has added more and more games in large stadium settings, as we see Montoya
collide with Earls. The disc was still caught by Farwell, but yeah, right near midfield. Earls was going up and kind of went into Montoya as he was landing. And Montoya took the brunt of it. Clock has stopped with 6:49 to go here in the second quarter. Let's see what happened.
And that looks like Earls' backside contacting his chest, maybe? But it looks as though the trainer now may be tending to his ankle or foot.
Now, when you watch that play, it doesn't look malicious. It looks like it's a foul. Could Earls have played it better? Certainly. I think that goes without saying. He made the foul, and I think Earls was the first one showing concern for Montoya.
And it's good to see Montoya, you know, able to get off the field, obviously with some help, but I have to say it's unfortunate, but I'm surprised that it's an ankle injury there.
Yeah.
I was expecting something closer to the upper body. So we see disc about to be tapped in. The receiver on the near side, Khalif El-Salam, being marked closely by Thomas.
And you see it now in the picture. The disc isn't even in play, and Thomas is already getting physical with El-Salam, trying to keep him at an arm's length. Miscommunication there, but it works out. Aldis Root with his first touch. Young 19-year-old member of the U.S. junior national team a year ago.
Thomas shadowing El-Salam in the dump set, forcing him to get out.
And now Seattle takes a timeout with 6:21 to go here in the second quarter. We'll take it too. The Cascades jumped out to a 2-0 lead early, and Seattle has led wire to wire. We're midway through the second quarter here in the Pacific Northwest.
Coaching here at Salmon Bay School, it's become really clear to me, especially with the little kids, what a wonderful thing teaching them ultimate is. And I think Eric is a wonderful way to bring this into school. You come with a complete program. The physical education teacher does not need to be an ultimate player or experienced with it. They bring expertise, they bring themselves, they bring a great message that actually transcends simply teaching kids about playing game and kind of segues into health and awareness, being cognizant of what's going on in your body, which is a tie-in that every physical education program really should and could tie into.
Around the AUDL on this 10-game weekend, Minnesota improved to 3-0 for the first time in franchise history, a 28-25 win over Indy. A game that Indy was down early in. AlleyCats came back to take the lead in the second half before Minnesota won it down the stretch. DC, as they've done, a 1-point win over New York. That's their 5th straight win over the Empire, 4 of which have come by 1. 2 of those last year in double overtime. Minnesota in the Midwest, a 2-score win over Chicago, 18-16 in that one. Here in Seattle, 10-7 the Cascades lead. As we tick under 6 minutes to play in the second quarter, a contact call gives the Cascades 10 yards. With Ian Toner, Evan Lepler along with you. We appreciate you joining us for Game 2 of the historic AUDL Cross Coast Challenge. A few weeks back, we saw Raleigh come back from a 5-goal deficit to beat DC in overtime. And we just saw Sam Pickle drop the hammer to the 19-year-old Aldis Root for the Seattle score. Largest lead of the day for the Cascades.
And Evan, we're starting to see that Seattle is making the most of their turnovers and timeout situations, more so than Pittsburgh has so far. We've seen Pittsburgh call at least 2 timeouts where they haven't been able to convert despite the fact of switching up some of their personnel. That's a large reason why Seattle's got a 4-goal lead right now.
Three straight goals for the Cascades after Jonathan Mast scored on the one productive timeout that Pittsburgh ran that made it 8-7. Also earlier today in the AUDL, the Toronto Rush snapped their 2-game losing streak with a 3-goal win in Ottawa More great defense on the under. Henry Fan providing the pressure. Toronto will be at Montreal tomorrow, looking to avenge their loss at the hands of the Royale. They lost at home to Montreal last week. Russell on the brink of the end zone. Lefties at home for the goal. John Doherty with the score for Seattle.
You get the sense that Pittsburgh is really lacking confidence at this point. Thorne was kind of stranded when he forced that upfield throw. Not great body language as their offense comes off the field, and we're going to see their defensive line go out there for another offensive point.
I really like the game Matt Russell's had so far, Ian. The young man out of Western Washington has done it defensively. He's distributed. He's made some nice catches downfield.
Casual offhand backhand for the goal there.
Russell, of course, was the recipient of that Will Chen 80-yard backhand. We say 80 yards, actually flew more than 80 yards in the air. One of the most memorable moments in the first 5 years of the AUDL last year in Madison. This is Jake Rovner, young man from Charlotte, out of Case Western Reserve. Oh, and got fortunate there. Mogielski shoots it to the end zone a little too quickly, was off balance, and you could tell the throw sailed on Kenny Fredella.
Maybe that works with no wind, but with that stiff breeze pushing the disc even further, it's going to be an even harder completion.
Kind of feels like no matter who Seattle has on the field, they move the disc quickly off a turn. That one tracked down by Tommy Lee, and he'll connect with John Doherty in the end zone. The Cascades are cruising now. That's 5 straight points for Seattle.
What an incredible throw by John Randolph. Working in the handler set, gets some space up line, and rips an upwind huck where only Tommy Lee can chase it down.
John Randolph had 3 goals and an assist last week. He was 33 of 33 passing the disc against the Spiders. And I asked Mark Burton, what is it about Randolph? He said, he's just so calm. He's like the calmest kid I've ever seen on the field. And to be doing what he's doing at the age he's doing it, that speaks volumes.
Excited to see where his career takes him next. Not the first time we've seen a young prodigy come out of the Seattle scene and make an impact right away. Someone like Jacqueline Verjou in the women's division comes to mind.
And, well, Jacqueline Verjou took off for an Ivy League school in Dartmouth. John Randolph is also going to an Ivy League school. He's heading to Brown. There have been some great players to matriculate through Brown through the years, including Callahan winners. Crossfield hammer. That is a nice throw. Pittsburgh needed it. Marmerstein to Trimble with 3:40 to go in the first half. That's Pittsburgh's first goal in nearly 7 full minutes of game action.
Yeah, Trimble, one of the larger guys on the Thunderbirds roster, along with the likes of Beardsley and Maxstat and DiGirolamo. He's actually attending a technical institute to become a professional welder.
A lot of interesting professional pursuits on both these teams, that's for sure. Pat Hammonds, a versatile veteran, launches the pull. Seattle's offense hasn't been on the field at the start of a point for a while.
A nice flood play out of the center stack to get that started.
Randolph looking. Fox, what a catch. Bryson Simon Fox for Seattle. To Burton for the goal.
I think just a few points ago we were talking about how highly the Seattle leadership thought of Bryson Simon Fox's play downfield for the Seattle offense thus far this year. You see him bailing Randolph out with an incredible grab in traffic.
That's as good as it gets.
I'm sure Randolph would love to execute that differently, but when Simon Fox is gonna clean up the trash like that, there may not be any need.
Burton the easy score. And Randolph, who did not have a throwaway last week, bailed out a little bit there. That's the type of throw that brings a team together, a type of catch, I should say.
Yeah, you know how quarterbacks take their offensive linemen out to dinner?
Right.
Randolph needs to buy Simon Fox a drink, even though he can't, because Randolph isn't 21 yet. He needs to do something
nice. He's
nice.
not even close to 21.
Yeah, he needs to do something nice for Bryson, preserving that completion percentage.
Pittsburgh called for a delay of game. So Seattle's going to get a few extra yards as Doc gets ready to pull. Mark Burton got to know John Doherty when Mark Burton, who has a bunch of Irish roots, his mom is Irish, he lived there for about 10 years growing up, played for Team Ireland in the World Championships last year, and initially, Doherty wasn't a big fan of Burton's. You really thought of him as kind of a threat. They were kind of rivals back and forth. And at the Windmill Windup Tournament in Amsterdam before Worlds last year, Doherty challenged Burton to a late night competition where they did throwing accuracy. They did a sprint. Tommy Lee, another defensive play for Seattle.
And who ended up winning that competition?
You know, I read that Doherty forgot who won, and then Mark Burton said that he won. I think it was very, very close. It was late night. I think there may have been some beverages before the competition. But I think that competition kind of initiated the friendship and is one of the reasons that Doherty is here today. Pat Earls doesn't get it there because of the defensive effort from Sam Pickle. That looked like a dime of a throw, but Pickle never gave up.
Pickle had no idea, well, he had an idea of where the disc was, but he didn't know exactly where it was and just kind of made himself large for the moment.
Looking for Root. He bids and just comes up shy. Clock ticking, under 2 minutes to go here in the second quarter.
What a turn of events. We've got a turnover in one end zone and another end zone in less than 20 seconds.
Seattle's lead is 6. Certainly can't complain about boredom. Plenty of action. Earls knifes the flick about 50 yards across the field. Mast with a stall count rising, finds Marmerstein. Earls low throw. Near the sideline, Thorne marked by Duffel. Down to 1:20 in the half. Earls worked for that 20-yard under. And now looking long again. Second huck of the point for Earls, and this time Scott Trimble rises up for the goal.
Yeah, when Earls caught that under from Thorne, he might have been the furthest Pittsburgh Thunderbird downfield at that moment. And you see him expressing some frustration, wanting some people to spread the field. And as soon as Trimble took off, I don't even know if he had any separation when he took that first step. Earls released it without hesitation.
Heck of an effort again from Pickle. His D earlier in the point was spectacular. He got a piece of it with his right hand, and the slight deflection did just enough. Oh, and there's the bid from Aldis Root, who had it, and then the ground caused the fumble. He has to maintain the contact, or maintain the possession, obviously.
A lot of contact there from Pickle. If Trimble isn't the 6'4" stocky receiver that he is, that might not be an innocuous bid.
That point had a little bit of everything, and now there's 1 minute and 3 seconds to go in the half for Adam Simon and the Seattle offense. Simon, originally from Atlanta, went to Paideia, then matriculated to the University of Colorado, where he and Bo Kittredge teamed up. Adam Simon and Bo Kittredge, Colorado team, lost to Brown, the national final 12 years ago. One of the great finals in the history of the college championships, down to the wire.
A lot of physicality there from Kenny Ferdella. He's been playing Randolph quite physically this whole point.
Looking Hauser's way. That's too easy. John Randolph drops another dime for the Cascades. 30 seconds left in the half, and Seattle back up by 6.
30 seconds remaining in the half.
Randolph now 3 for 3 on deep shots this quarter, unfazed by any wind that he might be facing. As we've got 30 seconds left to go here in the first half.
It's fascinating, Ian, to look around the league and see some of the young talent making an impact. I mean, in Raleigh, you got an 18-year-old in Liam Searles-Bose, who's regarded as one of the top recruits in the country. Searles-Bose going to Carolina, North Carolina. In the Carolinas, you have to specify that when you live there, obviously.
Right.
Obviously, Randolph, as we mentioned, headed to Brown. And in a related story, we're 3 weeks away from college nationals in Cincinnati.
Hard to believe that's already upon us.
Bunch of regionals to qualify the field this weekend.
North Carolina, one of those teams looking to secure the top bid out of the Atlantic coast.
Earls winds up, shooting for Thorne. What a throw. Max Thorne makes the catch, but Pat Earls with a majestic backhand for the goal. 7 seconds, all that remains on the clock.
And that's one of those goal shots that's made possible by the incredible dimensions of the pro game. I think Earls did everything he could to put that far over onto the force side and as deep into the back corner as he could.
Tommy Lee probably thought, yeah, I got a chance, and in the last moment, I got no chance.
And when you're tasked with chasing down Max Thorne after he already has some separation, it's not something I'd envy.
Max Thorne, despite the fact he's only 5'7", he's not as tall as his older brother Alex, he has worked himself into a pretty dynamic downfield receiver. Final seconds of the first half. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hauser, I don't believe he got it off. There is a referee waving it off, and it's defended by reprimand anyway. Let's give him credit for the D, shall we? Anson Reprimand led the Thunderbirds a year ago with 42 Ds.
Depends on who the scorekeeper is, right?
It's true.
The hometown scorekeeper would definitely give him that one.
Please welcome to the stage representatives.
Typically, each team keeps their own stats, so I bet Reprimand will get a D for that one. He's going to need a bunch more Ds, though, Ian, as Seattle has led wire to wire, and it's a 5-point game at the half. 15-10, Seattle in front on the back of their young dynamic handler, John Randolph. Will Chen had some special plays and just a great defensive effort, I thought, from Seattle during stretches in that half to build the lead.
No doubt about it. I think Seattle just made the most of their turnovers and their opportunities off of timeouts, maximizing the personnel that they had on the field and doing everything they could to convert those rare chances.
Good look at the crowd. You got one of the Seattle Cascades owners, Chyna Titcomb, sitting and enjoying the game among the commoners. You'd figure that the Titcomb family, the 5 Ultimate crew, they would have like thrones here to represent themselves, but they sit with the commoners. They are friendly folks here in Seattle, great ambassadors for the sport, and they got to be pleased with the effort of their team in the first half of this Cross Coast Challenge matchup. Halfway through, it's 15-10, Seattle leading Pittsburgh. Casey the Sasquatch has to be enjoying it too. We'll take a timeout, come back here to Memorial Stadium in just a moment. At the half on a chilly night here in Seattle, Washington, it is 15-10. The Cascades in front of the Thunderbirds. And we welcome you back to our broadcast location. Delighted to be alongside Ian Toner. I am Evan Lepler, and certainly an entertaining half of Ultimate. That was what we expected coming in. And unfortunately, if you joined us late, no Tyler DiGirolamo tonight for the Thunderbirds. He tweaked a groin in practice on Wednesday. And I think it's fair to say that Thunderbirds have played exciting Ultimate, but they've missed their best player.
Absolutely. You've seen their offense resorting to pulling in their defensive line a few times. They can't really find that chemistry or that clicking nature that you need to be confident and consistent on offense.
What in your mind, and I'm putting you on the spot, but that's your job, what was the difference in the game in that first half? Why is Seattle up by 5?
I think they made the most of their break and timeout opportunities, whereas Pittsburgh often turned it over after they called timeout, even after they had put their supposedly expert offensive players in the game.
And we talked about Mark Burton and Max Thorne off the top, but Pat Earls has been impressive with his throws, and Seattle's had a good team effort. Lots of different guys contributing for the Cascades.
Especially their youth. John Randolph has had at least 3 perfect hucks that last quarter. Aldous Root making a good name for himself defensively. It's got to be really encouraging for the Seattle team and the Seattle community to see such young players having such a positive impact.
And John Doherty, a guy from Ireland who had back-to-back goals in Seattle's run. There's a fascinating dynamic, and I think we've both seen it when we've traveled internationally for Ultimate, how folks around the world in different Ultimate countries, whether it's Australia or Ireland or Colombia or Germany, they are fascinated by the AUDL, and there is a dream to play in the AUDL and play part of American Ultimate. You got to be teammates with Tom Tullett this past year in the club season, a guy who came in from Australia and showed that he belonged. There's a lot of great talent around the world. It's really fun to see them on this stage.
No, and you're right. This is one of the pinnacles of the sport that players around the world aspire to. Another player that you didn't mention, Daniel Montoya, seeing that dream come true, a veteran of the Colombian national team. Great to see them seize this opportunity and make the teams when they travel here to compete.
Yeah, you look all around the league, the Montreal Royale, 3 players from the French national team helping to make a difference in their win in Toronto last week. A lot of good stuff going on around the league. And last week might have been the most epic week of competition that we've seen. There were 15 games, all 24 teams took the field, and the 10 plays, it was hard to narrow it down to 10, but we'll show you right now the top 10 plays from last week, an incredible week 5 in the AUDL. on the Jets, and he got it! Dan Emmons, are you kidding me?
How's your hamstring now?
They immediately take a shot. Look at the vision, but look at the play by Pettit Scantling.
Pushing it into the end zone for Walsh to get it. Unbelievable.
Telegraphed. Huge huck into double coverage.
That's not going to happen.
And a big layout. And it.
No way.
It's. Oh. They're caught.
No.
They are signaling it a goal.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable catch from DeClerc.
I think that's Brian Schoenrock, 16.
You're absolutely right, Hector. Schoenrock, I mean, who else would have the length here? We see if we can get an angle on it from this.
Oh my gosh.
Can't really see him make the catch there, but.
Play hockey.
Number 8 Ultimate Disc League action. I call that the Frisbee. Brian Schoenrock laying out. Oh,
Goodness, what a play.
nabs that before it hits the ground. Because gravity is cruel. You want to talk about a saucy pass, right? Had that one in the early on in that game for the. Is that a drone or a jib? The Ducks, but that was excellent. And you can bring dogs on.
Some of the great plays we've ever seen in the AUDL, and deep down, I think John Butchergross is a gigantic Ultimate fan. Can't wait for the overtime challenge to transcend into Ultimate. We're at the half here in Seattle. It's 15-10. The Cascades leading the Thunderbirds in the Cross Coast Challenge. Nice look at the Space Needle. Second half coming up when we come back.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that when it comes to cancer can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
Hi, I'm Joel Larakis, and I'm the operations manager of Boone Technical Clothing here in the United States. I lost my mom last 2014 to breast cancer. She was 54 years old. It was pretty tough for me because I wasn't able to help her or have the kind of knowledge to be able to do something about the situation. I learned about Eric, about Jim's vision, about his organization, and I want to be part of it. Not only as an Ultimate player, but also a son to my mom. I think one thing that early recognition is critical helped me was to be able to reach out to other people who are still having the chance or privilege to do something about the cancer within their family or like friends. I think that's what Eric is all about. It's just not within the sport, it goes on and off the field. If you volunteer, even though it's only you can be able to inspire and aspire other people to help the movement. And you never know, people are just waiting to be reached out to, and they're only waiting for you.
Second half, just about 45 seconds away from getting underway, and there was some unbelievable action in the first 24 minutes, Ian Toner.
We saw Will Chen being incredibly athletic, keeping his feet moving, laying out for that block on the mark. Whoever coached him would love to see those fundamentals there. And then Xavier Maxstat, a standstill huck just to the back of the end zone. And Khalif El-Salam with the great grab, and then unfortunately turfing it right away. That's one of those things that will, as he matures, hopefully ingrain and instill more patience.
So this Pittsburgh Thunderbird squad, they're without their best player, as David Hogan joked to us before the game, and at that time it was uncertain whether Tyler would play. He said, well, at least we're used to playing without him because we did it all last year. Would they be closer in this game with him? Probably, but I still think they're capable of coming back to win. We saw in the Cross Coast Challenge a few weeks ago a 5-goal deficit that was certainly not insurmountable. So what in your mind are going to be the keys for Pittsburgh in the second half?
I think they're going to need to find a way to generate and create some offensive chemistry. I'm still not seeing that trust and familiarity when their offensive line goes out there. I don't know if they're not calling the right strings, if their cutters aren't making the looks or making the cuts that the throwers are looking for, but I want to see them build some offensive chemistry and familiarity so that they're not constantly having to dig themselves out of a turnover hole.
Mark Burton, Adam Simon and company taking the field. For those who have not been watching Ultimate for a decade, and you've just been watching the last couple of years, you may not appreciate how good Adam Simon was during his heyday. He's still a really good player, but this is a guy who played for the U.S. national team at the World Games and who has been a part of so many different proud programs in Ultimate, from Paideia to the University of Colorado to some of the great names in the club division like Chain and Bravo and Ironside and Revolver and Sockeye. He has one heck of a jersey collection through the years of his Ultimate experiences.
I had the pleasure of playing on his team at the off-season tournament Kaimana Classic in Hawaii.
What was that like?
I'll tell you, Chicken still got it. He can still rip it. He's still an integral part of the offense, and you know, being able to camp on a beach and look out on a Hawaiian bay when you wake up in the morning, that's not too shabby either.
I have heard about Kaimana and Hopu, and there are a lot of reasons to go to Hawaii and play Ultimate, and sadly, I haven't capitalized on those opportunities yet, but one day.
It's on your list.
It is, no question about it. Simon, nice job coming to the disc. Clark to Randolph. And Burton encouraged Bailey to let it go, and he pays it off.
It's a really fast-moving offensive point for the Cascades there. You see Simon having to pump, and after he survived the contact from Kenny Ferdilla, thought that was a suspect bid, colliding with the lower half of Simon, but thankfully Simon uninjured. Point continues, and throw goes into the end zone for Burton.
John Randolph had the first assist of the first half for Seattle, and his dish opens the scoring here in the third quarter as well. Now, the Seattle Cascades coming into this game had a plan about how they were going to try and contain Tyler DiGirolamo. And that plan may be a little unorthodox if you know Khalif El Salam, because you don't think of him as a defensive guy. You think of him much more as an offensive playmaker. Not that he hasn't been a guy who's played every single point for his teams through the years too.
Right.
The plan was for Khalif to guard Tyler DiGirolamo, and I was sitting and chatting with Khalif last night. He really has never guarded DiGirolamo before, so he was excited about the challenge, excited about the opportunity. Knew that he wouldn't be able to totally stop him. The thought was, well, I'll just try to, you know, take away some things. As Mast shoots it, both Beardsley and Earl's in the area, and on the second effort, Earl's able to pluck it and hit Max Thorne. A fortuitous ricochet off the first touch, and Earl's bails himself out.
Good job by Earl sticking with that play. Thought that was going to be another one of those end zone or near end zone drops. Not quite a sure thing when he went up for it, but way to stick with it and find Thorne streaking behind into the end zone.
Missed it with the right, grabbed it with the left. We've had 2 goals in the first 58 seconds of the half, one apiece for each team.
Reminiscent of the pace in the first few minutes we saw in the first quarter.
Yep. That's the 5th assist of the game for Earls. And I'm just guessing it's not going to be the last. He averaged 7 a game last year. Averaged right around 7 a game 2 years ago, too, as Alex Thomas soars in for the D.
Wearing 24 with speed like that, you might as well call him Revis Island, huh?
They think he is one of the faster guys on the team. Missed a bunch of weeks last year when he pulled a hamstring. And how about Will Chen? Are you kidding me?
Another block just on the mark. Being agile. I think he's demonstrating some great fundamentals for younger players to learn how to mark in this game.
Well, Chen played college ultimate at Harvard and then his last year at Stanford. Repperman helps Pittsburgh get it right back.
You know Maxstat never wants to settle for that reset.
Chen nearly got another one. Maxstad looked like it was deflected by Chen too, but it got through. Over the top. Not gonna work for Pittsburgh.
Swirling stadium breeze definitely interfered with the distance and depth of that throw.
You gotta be wary. Those cross-field hammers with a swirling wind. 3 Thunderbirds, 1 Cascade, and it's Seattle's Brad Hauser who comes down with the disc and then throws it away.
What are the odds Maxstat rips a standstill deep puck right here?
I'd say about 60%. Probably undershot it a little bit. Mark Burton's gonna come up with a D. The disc was intended for Jake Rovner. And a whistle blows, and it was an inadvertent whistle, so it's gonna be a Seattle possession. Simon on the under. Sees his teammate taken off and turning on the Jets. Bryson Simon Fox has done it again.
We've seen Simon Fox get vertical in the first half, now going horizontal in the second half. What a downfield threat he's become for this Cascades roster, as you saw Simon with a quick little nod and flick of the eyes, and that's all Simon Fox needed to take off deep.
That point took 2:25 off the clock. Bunch of turns, some pretty good changes of momentum back and forth. And I gotta be honest with you, Ian, when this throw left the hand of, well, there's the D of Chen.
And again, he's not lunging on the mark. He is constantly moving his feet and repositioning himself.
When Simon launched this throw, I thought it might be too far. Simon Fox, though, able to get there. Will Chen has had a great career in Ultimate, and I mean, it seems kind of unfair to the world that he is Masters age, and at Beach Worlds in France in June, he'll be on the USA Men's Masters team. Looking to the end zone, accelerating for the score, Mark Fedorenko.
Once again, Pat Earls throwing a nice mid-range, slightly blady flick huck outside in. He loves ripping those. That's his bread and butter.
Interestingly, I think there was a malfunction. They never started the stadium clock. They just took 15 seconds off the clock moments ago. Pittsburgh struck quickly is the point. Earls with his 6th assist of the night. Mark Fedorenko is a guy, primarily a defensive player for Pittsburgh 2 years ago. And then last year, without DiGirolamo, after a couple games, David Hogan basically decided we need some more size on our offensive line. And he became a reliable goal scorer, finished the year with 39 goals, along with 31 assists. He's kind of a multi-tool player for the Thunderbirds team that, again, for the 2nd straight year, went all the way to the Midwest Division Championship game. Donnie Clark's on his horse, and he will run that down with ease.
Heck of a throw from Adam Simon. He saw Donnie Clark just kind of hanging out on the break side, and I'm not sure if he gave him a pump fake or a quick head nod. But once you're hanging out in that shallow space on the break side, there's always an opportunity for you to bust deep. And just a perfect throw from Simon. Nobody's gonna catch Donnie Clark in that situation, except maybe a clone of himself, right?
Yeah, I mean, he has described himself as a golden retriever who just wants to run after the disc like a dog. He led the Cascades in goals 2 years ago. Finished 2nd behind Mark Burton in goals last year. Donnie will turn 30 this September. 6-score game. Last 2 goals have come in 32 seconds. Pittsburgh already just outside the red zone. Mast, a quick reset. Jonathan Mast is a slippery handler to guard.
Yeah, he was once a nationally ranked table tennis player.
Yeah, don't let him hustle you if you're ever hanging out after a game.
You know, I'm interested to know why Pittsburgh hasn't gone with this kind of handler-dominant, handler-weave style offense up until this point. Of course, as soon as I say that, Marmerstein throws a turnover.
Yeah, Doherty intercepts the throw, some miscommunication near the end zone when everything gets a little tighter. Doherty launches a flick downfield, and he had nobody, and the throw was out of bounds. So Seattle not really capitalizing on Pittsburgh's red zone turnover. And the Thunderbirds are going to have the disc right on the goal line because that throw from Doherty never came back in bounds.
Max Thorne's going to pick up. With Earls back in the reset. And a nice little high release flick.
Cheeky from Thorne to Fedorenko. 6:30 to go in the third quarter. Back to a 5-goal game.
And you know, both of the Thorns have that, I don't know if you want to call it a high release or a 3/4 release. They both have the ability to throw their flicks characteristically higher than many other throwers. So that seemed more natural for Max than it might for your average thrower.
Yeah, him and his brother Alex have both done a pretty impressive job mastering a variety of release points.
Definitely.
Max started playing competitive ultimate at North Hills High School when he was still in middle school. Obviously comes from an ultimate family. Both of his parents play ultimate. His older brother Alex, part of the Pittsburgh, I was gonna say dynasty, that might be a little strong. They won 2 consecutive titles. I don't know if that makes them a dynasty, but the Pittsburgh era, they had several other years when they were the top team in college men's ultimate in the regular season, and then were upset at nationals a couple times by Xavier Maxtad's UNC Wilmington team as Maxtad picks up the disc. Launching to the end zone, and another Pittsburgh drop in this same end zone. This time John Diamichis just flubbed it. That's the 3rd time in this end zone that Pittsburgh has dropped a sure score. Clark picks up, looking for Burton. Great instincts, reading the disc. And then looking for Hauser. He's got him. That's a killer sequence for Pittsburgh. Seattle boomerangs the field in 3 throws to go up by 6.
Is that the 3rd time we've seen that in this game? A drop score in this end zone up here. And Pittsburgh makes them pay, and excuse me, Seattle makes them pay by marching the disc the length of the field with relative ease.
Looks like he was playing D.
It does. It's unfortunate for Pittsburgh.
And Burton, the nice read and the better vision. Mark Burton, a Seattle kid through and through, even though he spent a good chunk of his life living in Ireland. Got to spend some time with Mark last night at the Seattle Mariners game over at Safeco Field. My first chance to attend a ball game at that facility. I learned that Mark Burton has over 200 Ken Griffey Jr. cards.
Wow.
He's a bit of a super fan.
At what point do you draw the line?
I think about 205 is
Okay.
where he's at right now.
So it's still coming.
That's a good dump swing, and Max Thorne catches the goal from John Mast. So that happened fast, and Pittsburgh's back within 5. The Thunderbirds are going to need to channel what Raleigh did a few weeks ago in the first Cross-Coast Challenge game to get back into this thing, though.
Again, I think it's nothing but missed opportunities, right? They've dropped sure goals in the end zone. They haven't capitalized on opportunities after timeouts. At some point, you simply just have to convert. There aren't that many other strategic levers you can pull. You just need to execute.
Here's Tyler DiGirolamo. Warmed up at the start of the game. Had his cleats on, got the groin worked on, but it was a no-go. Past the midway point. In fact, 5 minutes to go now here in this third quarter. Seattle took a 2-0 lead at the start, had 3-1, 4-2, 7-5 after 1. They've led the whole way, and Brad Hauser, just shy of the end zone, flips it to Donnie Clark. And the Cascades with another quick counter. I'm not sure how you stop Donnie Clark. He is relentless with his cutting.
And the other interesting thing about that point was we saw a few typically defensive-oriented players, Matt Russell and Will Chen, come over onto this offensive unit, and Russell with the deep shot there to Hauser. Looks like Seattle's opening things up as their lead lengthens.
Russell showing off another one of his skills. Nice job by Hauser attacking that disc at the high point. He sensed Diamichis was lurking. Russell might have to ice his arm after the game after that throw. Probably not.
Go in the cold tub like one of those pitchers, right?
About 4:35 remaining here in the third. Pittsburgh trailing by 6, matching the largest deficit of the night for the Thunderbirds. A Pittsburgh team that beat Chicago 2 weeks ago by 8 and beat Indy last week by 1. Trimble to the end zone. Fedorenko can't get there. Another rushed opportunity and a frustrating miscue for Pittsburgh near the end zone. I mean, you could put your finger on 5 or 6 plays that if Pittsburgh had made, they might be down by 1 or 2 instead of 6.
Absolutely, and that's so hard to adjust for and account for when you're coaching this team, especially with a really small roster, only 18 players here. At some point, the players just kind of have to take it upon themselves to execute more efficiently.
Pittsburgh's putting in great effort here defensively, and Seattle having a tough time working it downfield. Around flick to Root. Duffel. Fan. This is Doherty. And a whistle and a timeout. And Doherty was getting ready to wind up and look for Khalif El-Salam. And Doherty's holding on to the disc thinking, well, maybe they still want me to be the handler out of the timeout. My guess is he'll get some fresh legs on the field with just over 3 minutes remaining here in this third quarter. Seattle, in its third year as the Cascades in the AUDL. Seattle originally joined the AUDL as the Raptors in 2014. They struggled to a 3-11 season last year, although of those 11 losses that they had, 7 of them were by 5 scores or less. They were competitive. The San Jose Spiders, the eventual champs last year, beat the Seattle Raptors 4 times, including once by 3 and once by 5. Cam Bailey was the leading goal scorer for that Seattle Raptors team that was owned by Ben Teelhorn, the original owner of the Seattle AUDL franchise. And then after that 2014 season, the Titcomb family that has founded and created such a fine ultimate company in 5 Ultimate purchased the franchise, rebranded them the Cascades. Team named after the Cascade mountain range that runs through the state of Washington. And since the Titcomb family purchased this team, they've got a pretty incredible record. Franchise has gone 19-12 in the regular season since the start of 2015. Quick turnover, though, off the timeout reset. .230 to go here in this third quarter. Pittsburgh trying to get it back to a 5-score game. Tad Whistle, the pivot man. Nick Gigliotti's throw to the end zone, deflected by Russell.
Who else?
He's had an unbelievable game.
Just enough to alter the trajectory so that the Thunderbirds receiver couldn't get the read he needed to reel that in.
How much defensive energy does Pittsburgh have in the tank? Oh, enough. Looking deep to Burton.
But Russell gets it right back.
Aaron busts his throw, intercepted, and now looking for El Salam. Alex Thomas is there, and Thomas knocks it away. For a second, he nearly was going to be victimized by not catching the D. Oh, this is a wild point. Started at the 4:45 mark after Donnie Clark's goal. And now there's less than 90 seconds to go in the third quarter. Can Pittsburgh work it down? The Thunderbirds will get the disc to start the fourth. A chance to double score, which when you're down by 6 can really help narrow a deficit quite nicely. Under a minute now. And a deep shot. Mogielski looking for Heffron, and what a catch! Jack Heffron hauls it in with 50 seconds remaining in the third quarter. Pittsburgh within 5.
And a great job by Heffron keeping Hauser kind of on his back hip. And an awkwardly blading throw. Hauser, as the defender, I guess there are a few other options, but I don't blame him for trying to go up early in that position. And Heffron just able to maintain his position and come down with the disc.
So not the most common connection, Mogielski to Heffron. 50 seconds remaining in the quarter. Clark's throw right on the money. Mitch Kolzak was college roommates with Jay Frood at the University of Missouri. Simon's throw defended. Bidding on the under, Anson Repperman used his speed to get there. And now Pittsburgh will call a timeout, I believe. Well, the disc went out of bounds. They'll stop the clock. This would be a huge sequence for the Thunderbirds if this Repperman D could become a buzzer-beating score. And then Pittsburgh will get the disc to start the fourth quarter too. Seattle knows about dramatic momentum changes at the end of the third quarter. Earls launches. This is a basic 50-50. And it's caught by Repperman. He's got 10 seconds. He doesn't need to rush. just shy of the end zone. Diamichis with 4, with 3, over the top. He finds Fedorenko. 1 second left, and the Thunderbirds as close as they have been since the second quarter.
Evan, I'm not gonna lie, as soon as that throw went up, I really thought the Thunderbirds were gonna find a way to not convert this break. But a phenomenal grab by Reprimand as we see him getting that block on the underthrow to Tommy Lee to get Pittsburgh the disc in the first place.
What a point for Reprimand. And then Diamichis with time winding down. Watch Fedorenko call for it.
And you saw Fedorenko kind of not fully clap the pancake and slightly wiggle in his hands, and I thought for sure we were headed for yet another drop in that end zone.
So now Pittsburgh, if they can defend 1 second, they'll have all the momentum heading into the fourth quarter. Hefferon scored with 50 seconds to go, and then Fedorenko with 1 second left. And they're going to trap Adam Simon on the sideline. The double team of Thomas and Gigliotti, and the hand block will finish up the quarter.
Not much else for Simon to do there. Burn a second and maybe try and get something off.
Wow. How quickly things can change in the AUDL, Ian Toner.
Let's see how Pittsburgh responds.
We've played 36 minutes. We've got 12 to go, and the Cascades will try to hang on. They lost by 1 last week. This Pittsburgh team was down by multiple points in their fourth quarter against Indy, and they came back to win by 1. 12 minutes will be on the clock. When we return, 20-16, Seattle leads at the end of 3, but Pittsburgh's coming. Well, more and more, we are learning that leads are not safe in this league. And even without Tyler DiGirolamo, this Pittsburgh team closed that third quarter with incredible energy to get back within 4. And the Thunderbirds offensive line with Beardsley, Earls, Fedorenko, Mast, Thorne, and Trimble, and Fedorenko and Marmerstein taking the field. You see the defensive line for Seattle, led by El Salam, Duffel, Doherty, Fan, Jackson, Root, and Farwell. Now Seattle still has a 4-goal cushion, but Pittsburgh with certainly a lot of positive energy at the end of that quarter, Ian.
Lots to build on. Couple goal swing there at the end, and even that point block at the end of the quarter, that's a motivational boost and emotional trigger for your team. When you're trying to mount a comeback, you need to scrap onto any little piece you can to give your team energy. Credit to someone like El Salam and any of the other college players who are pulling double duty and competing in college and pro at the same time. It's a you know, playing in just the pro circuit or the pro-end club or just the club circuit, it's a grind. It takes a huge toll on your body. And the fact that he's able to stay healthy and compete at a high level.
Max Thorne shooting it, looking for Fedorenko, and it's knocked away by El Salam. Khalif, a few years ago, said he wants to be the best player in the world when he's 27 years old. Right now, he's just 23. He's got time. He'll be 24 in November. And his throw hauled in despite the contact. Farwell hit by Marmerstein. I mean, it's overstating it to say this, but it feels like almost everything is hanging on this point, especially from Pittsburgh's perspective. 3 Thunderbirds squeezed the Seattle receiver downfield.
Looked like Earls was the one who knocked that one away, but he's a little stranded on his own goal line here.
Resets to Thorne. Underneath, Beardsley. Fedorenko, the throw is behind him. He was open.
That's a fatigue turnover, Evan. Earlier in the game, that might not happen.
Beardsley bids for the D, can't get there. And Seattle has the score. The Cascades break to start the 4th. Seattle back up by 5.
Really unfortunate to have that be the way Seattle gets the disc back, an unforced turnover. And just when we thought Pittsburgh might be able to mount a comeback, they dig themselves into an even deeper hole, now down by 5.
Lots to unpack. That's the goal at the end of the 3rd quarter that brought Pittsburgh within 4. And then this huck looked good when it left his hands, but El Salam, a tough guy to test.
I don't know if that's, you know, I think that was Fedorenko, the receiver, going deep there. I think that's maybe an even matchup in the air, or maybe Khalif has a slight advantage, especially if you have to factor in the fact that you might be throwing upwind. We can play Monday morning quarterback all we want, but I'm not sure that, for a number of reasons, that's the shot you want to take.
I think the ultimate euphemism, we can have a Tuesday toss as long as you want, but it's all retrospective.
I'm waiting for Peter King to link to that sometime
any day
this
now.
year.
Any day now. How about this hammer? It's ambitious, and it works! Mogielski. The hammer to the brink of the end zone, and then Repperman has the goal.
I think earlier we were talking about the wind giving those hammer shots fits when you're throwing over longer distances, but at a certain point in the game, there's a certain amount of desperation that gets involved, and you have to take shots that you might not normally take. And
nice catch by Jake Rovner. He is one of 6 members of the Thunderbirds organization that will be heading to tryouts for the U24 teams. And a young player, played youth in the North Carolina Triangle, where he was coached by Mike Denardis, the coach of the Raleigh Flyers and University of North Carolina. Jonathan Nethercutt also has coached Rovner. I think Pittsburgh, rightfully is excited about all these young players that are going to miss some time for tryouts, but when you have that many guys trying out for the young national team, it bodes well for the future.
Exactly, that can be a great learning experience for them if any of them are able to make the team. Bob Cryer, the coach of that team, just a fantastic teacher and leader and instructor, very disciplined.
Is he who you played for when you played on U23?
He is, and he was also coach of the Colorado men's club team for several years as well.
We tick under 9 minutes to play in the 4th as Clark look into the end zone, and that's too good. You could see Max Thorne bracing himself for the bid and then realized he had no shot as the throw swirled around the defense into the chest of Will Chen.
Heck of a throw there from Donnie Clark, and younger Ultimate players may get coached. Hey, don't throw a huck or a long or mid-range throw down the same third of the field. But when you've got the skill and touch that Donnie Clark does, you're allowed to break those rules. And he put that on a platter for Will Chen.
I'm really impressed by the hustle from both teams. You saw John Diamichis laying out on Chen when he was, on Clark, I should say, when he was receiving the throw. And both teams, you know, with varying amounts of depth because of injuries and whatnot, are just playing really, really hard here tonight. It is, you know, pretty ideal ultimate conditions from a temperature standpoint in the low 50s. A few weeks back, Raleigh overcame a 5-goal deficit with about this much time left. But it's going to need to start pretty soon for Pittsburgh if they are going to mount a comeback. This is Earls. He's had a big game already, and he adds to his total. It is amazing the chemistry those two have with one another, Pat Earls and Max Thorne.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what the Seattle defense is thinking or liking or preferring when they're putting that backhand force on there that enables Pat Earls to throw his flick huck or flick mid-range shot, which has a quicker release than his backhand and can be knifed a little more accurately than a backhand can. Perhaps they think that he's more prone to turn the disc over with that force, but we've also seen him throw more than a handful of goals with mid-range flick shots like that one.
Pat Earls is a guy who's always impressed me with his vision and the throws that he takes. You know, he fires with pace. He's capable of that floaty throw. We saw the full field shot that Thorne chased down near the end of the first half. But a lot of his throws are very direct, targeted, kind of honing radars.
He's a gunslinger.
Thomas tried to poach, couldn't get there. Clark unleashes deep, and another great catch by Hauser. Past the bidding defender Rovner and into the end zone for Burton. It's been the story of the night. So many times Pittsburgh has been so close on both sides of the disc. 7:59 remaining, and Seattle clinging to a 5-goal edge.
We saw Alex Thomas pull up on one of those first underthrows to avoid a collision underneath, and then after that, Seattle was able to get the deep shot off to Hauser. Great pressure there from Jake Rovner. Not much you can do when that disc goes flying up the break side, though.
Good effort from Rovner, but Burton secures the goal from Hauser.
We see a junk defensive look here from the Cascades to get things started. And now they're transitioning out into man as Earls rips.
Looking for Trimble. Falls down right into his breadbasket.
Is that what we might call warning track power?
You could. I don't know if I would challenge Pat Earls' throwing prowess. He's been pretty good. A quick score from Thunderbirds. That's what they need. 7:37 remaining, only 22 seconds coming off the clock on that point.
At a certain point here, if you're Dave Hogan, you got to start stacking your lines. You got to start putting your best athletes, no matter what. I'm thinking someone like Fedorenko, Beardsley, Earls, Thorne, some combination of them have to start crossing over to the D-line so they can start getting those blocks, or at least put them in a position to secure those blocks.
He's thinking about it. David Hogan telling us before the game that, you know, he certainly at this stage of the season spends more time with that D-line. He trusts the offense to basically set itself. I asked him who was going to be the primary center handler. He said, I don't know. It's up to them each point. They'll mix it up. We have such a young D-line, and that's where we've had issues. That's my primary focus. We'll see if he calls some of those guys over.
Lots of handler weave movement from the Cascades. Haven't really gained a lot of yardage, and this is really taxing as a handler defender when you're essentially just running suicides back and forth in small spaces.
Burton holstered the deep shot, resets to Chen. There's a turnover right near midfield.
Looked like Aaron Buss got his hand on the disc as it came out of his hand.
And looking long, this is to make it a 3-score game. No. Intended for Mogielski.
Mogielski laid out to get that block after Buss got his first hand on it, but he's gonna have to dig in to earn another one here.
Clock still ticking, 6:20 remaining in the game. Hauser to Randolph. Simon unleashes. Will Chen's going deep. Putting on the burners. Chen gets there. Burton goes cross field. And there's Bailey.
Was there ever any doubt that Will Chen would find a way to make the play?
It seems foolish to doubt this guy at all. That's our friction gloves catch of the game. Will Chen, the product of Harvard and Stanford, and he has become a Seattle mainstay. He doesn't factor into the goal or the assist. He'll get the hockey assist. I know you appreciate hockey assists as much as anybody.
Absolutely. I firmly believe they should be tracked. And for any one of these Pittsburgh youngsters or even Seattle youngsters who are going to be trying out for Bob Cryer's U24 team, Bob tracks hockey assists on his stat sheet. So they do have value.
Mark down one for Chen right there. Under 6 minutes to go in the game. Pittsburgh still trailing by 5. They had the deep throw to cut it to 3. Could not convert. Earls double teamed.
No call there. Seemed like some obvious contact.
Yeah, that has to be either a travel or a foul. It's one or the other. There's no way that that can be neither because Earls was dislodged from his pivot. So Pittsburgh yelling for the clock to stop. And they're right, and it will, and time will be added. It'll be around 5:30 remaining. AUDL officials, like AUDL players, are often inexperienced and learning as they go along. And I think, you know, more and more you talk to players around the league this year, and I wouldn't say they're raving about the officiating, but they are certainly very respectful and appreciative of the efforts that the majority of these referees have made. And they called a travel on Earls. Guy still moving downfield. The double team is still there. And Earls flicks it across to Beardsley, who's wide open. To Marmerstein. Back to Earls. A long trip for the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. About as long of a road trip than any AUDL team will make all year. Thorne was bumped.
Interesting to see that called as a foul and no call on the Earls mark at midfield.
Contact is called, and Pittsburgh will advance the disc
don't disagree. Now this delay is hurting Pittsburgh, but the clock should be running here. It's up to Thorne to get it to the right spot faster. And he'll fire to the end zone and connect with Earls. 4:34 to go and a 4-goal deficit. Pittsburgh's not out of it. They've got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time.
Yeah, now's the time, as we talked about a few minutes ago, now's the time to stack those lines. And we see Earl staying out there for this point. Maxstack getting set to pull. As we saw Thorne just kind of step back and break the mark quite easily. Again, he's got that higher than normal flick release point that he's so comfortable with.
It's amazing to watch some of the best throwers in the sport just be impervious to marks at times. It humbles you just to watch it.
And as a defender, it's demoralizing.
I bet. So Seattle, certainly it's not a bad thing if they score. Cascades right now, all the cutters downfield were just kind of going deep, creating space for the handlers. And there's Pat Earls coming up with a D.
That's why you put him on that line.
Earls will fire long, looking for Rovner. Can the young kid come up with it? Yes! Rising up with a left hand. Rovner gets the quick reset. Reprimand. And Pittsburgh called timeout from the sideline before the throw. Clock stops with 3:55 remaining. Pittsburgh trying to get within 3.
That was pure chaos for a few seconds there before that timeout got called. You heard Pat Earls and a number of the other receivers screaming, and, trying to get his attention, and there's Earls with the block. A great heads-up play. The throw wasn't to his receiver, but he gets a hand on it, and here's Rovner going up in traffic. Really strong with that left hand.
This is a kid making his Pittsburgh Thunderbirds debut tonight. That'll earn him some love from his teammates.
See details at seattlecascades.com/events.
About a month ago, Pittsburgh had a scrimmage, the Thunderbirds versus the University of Pittsburgh. And in that game, David Hogan said that Rovner was one of the best D-line players in that game. He got several Ds. And in part because of that performance, they were confident that he'd be able to hold his own on this field, and he's certainly proven that. All right, 3:55 to go. Max Thorne will have the disc. They're isolating Fedorenko.
I'd put a lot of money on a high release flick to the front of the stack here, to this, well, ISO'd individual.
Well, they're gonna go the rising backhand, and that will work, and Fedorenko's in, and Pittsburgh is within 3.
Just when we thought the comeback wasn't happening, Thunderbirds find a way to turn it on. They're within 3 with just under 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 50 seconds to be exact, left on the clock.
That clock's gonna move slowly for the Seattle Cascades and their fans. Fedorenko isolated on Cameron Smith-Bailey. This is a Pittsburgh team that, when they've played their best, has been able to create turnovers with their D-line. Thorne and Earls are both still out there. Reprimand to pull. Randolph catches the pull, centers to Simon. Bryson Simon Fox with a good fake to Chen. Clark coming to the under. And across midfield to Burton. Looked off Simon, deep reset to Chen. Precious seconds bleeding away. Now 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Clark being chased by Thomas. That throw hanging in the air, and it's knocked away. Pittsburgh has the disc with 3:10 to go. Earls looking, Repperman bolting into the end zone. It's a 2-score game.
Anson Repperman, probably the MVP of the game for the Thunderbirds so far. Multiple blocks, stretching deep on that turnover. And it's a 2-score game with just over 3 minutes left.
3:02 on the clock, 24-22. It's a 3-0 run in the last 2:58 from the Thunderbirds. Here's the D. Just got a piece of the disc against Hauser. And Repperman knew that throw was going up from Earls.
Yeah, and Rovner was taking off deep as well. I think Earls, the gunslinger, had tunnel vision in a good way and was going to throw that to Repperman no matter what.
All week long, I was thinking there's going to be a 4-0, 5-0 run from each team in this game, and well, Pittsburgh hasn't had one yet, but here they come. 3 straight scores. Handler defense on Chen. Whistled, laying out, but he couldn't get there, and now Chen fires downfield, connecting for El Salam. Burton back to Khalif. 2:33 to go and ticking. And there's an injury downfield in the end zone.
I think Will Chen collided with Steve Mogielski when he was trying to make an upline cut.
Athletic trainer is out to check on Chen. The clock has stopped with 2:28 left.
Good to see him getting up right away, but no weight on that right leg. Maybe just an ankle sprain if he's lucky.
Even when he's hurt, he's bouncy. All right, El Salam has it. Fedorenko's on the mark. Down the stretch we come here in Seattle. Back to Simon. He looked off Bailey. Disc has some float. Trusting Hauser to make the play. Burton. And he thinks he's in. He calls himself in. The official agrees.
That's a great aggressive reception by Burton. He milks that throw just as far as he can, takes off at the last possible second, and then launches his feet backwards to make sure his toes touch in the end zone. And he might have made contact with a Thunderbird defender's legs as he was doing that. As we see Chen saving possession earlier. And here's Hauser looking around. You see Burton jump up.
Ooh. I think instant replay brings that back.
Believe so as well.
But it counts. Just over 2 minutes to play. Seattle back up by 3.
How many more years until the AUDL owners are talking about coaches' challenges at the off-season owners meeting?
You know, I hope we see the day when that becomes a thing. And who knows, maybe we're closer than we think. I gotta tell you, there were about 4 or 5 managers' challenges at the Mariners game last night, which just took the wind out of the sails of the game. Now we're under 2 minutes left. Pittsburgh's trailing by 3, and the Thunderbirds need points quickly. Thorne shooting for Marmerstein. That was a fantastic toss. Thorne somehow saw the lane to release the around flick past the defender to Marmerstein. 1:46 to go, back to a 2-goal game.
Crafty deep throws are nothing new for Max, and great vision there. Sees the lane, and I think that was only possible because there was a lot of great space in the break lane. So credit to the Thunderbird downfield receivers keeping that space as soon as Thorne got the ball.
It's a nice big angle. Marmerstein was starting to cut to the middle, and it was Thorne who kind of threw him toward the sideline. Astute toss from Max Thorne. Again, Pittsburgh needing a turnover. If Seattle makes a mistake in the next 45 seconds, things are going to get very interesting and tight. Randolph launches, looking for Clark. He's got him. I think this John Randolph kid's a keeper. Cascades back up by 3 with 1:32 left.
Brownie in Motion's going to be quite happy to have him in their ranks. 4 for 4, if not better, on deep pucks so far this game for John Randolph.
And that's a throw that you don't necessarily need in that situation. Possession is certainly more important than the risk of a turnover, but you know, if you make it, it works out.
Minute and a half left to defend here.
Buck 32, Pittsburgh trailing by 3.
We're approaching Hail Mary time.
Fedorenko for Beardsley. Beardsley's not the guy to make that throw. He's the guy to receive that Hail Mary.
Not sure how much longer Pittsburgh can afford to work it up.
Mast going cross field, and that, I believe, is his first throwing turnover of the season, and it will probably be the end of the Pittsburgh rally tonight. Under a minute now. The Cascades trying to milk the clock and finish this thing. Zach Jackson throws to the laying out. Sam Pickle, 40 seconds to go. Trimble intercepts to Thorne. Hammer looking for Fedorenko. It's going to be shy of the goal line.
Double helixed on him.
25 seconds to go. Back across the field. And it was dropped again, and holy cow. Pittsburgh is going to have a good deal of regret. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I don't know how much there's going to be to learn from the tape.
5 seconds to go. Beardsley intercepts. Earls throws to the end zone. This is good if it goes. Fedorenko makes the catch. And what do you know, I think the spread on AUDL Pick'em was 2.5. So if you pick Pittsburgh in the points, you're in good shape. But if you pick Seattle to win, you're feeling pretty good too, because the Cascades win this Cross-Coast Challenge Showcase 26-24. Pittsburgh falls just short, a slew of mistakes that the Thunderbirds will look back on without their superstar, Tyler DiGirolamo, out with an injury. Seattle Cascades hand Pittsburgh the Thunderbirds' first loss of the year. Seattle improves to 3-1. Pittsburgh falls to 2-1, staring down a game in Madison 2 weeks from today.
Good to see Will Chen up and moving, although his ankle is taped and covered in ice. We hope it's not that serious a sprain. He had an incredible game for the Cascades, a number of point blocks, and this tremendous layout grab, which was our friction gloves catch of the game as well.
Will Chen and the Seattle Cascades get the job done. And Seattle will be back in action next week when they travel to San Francisco for the first time this year. We greatly appreciate you spending some of your Saturday with us here in Seattle. And for now, we say so long. 26-24 is the final score. The Cascades take it for Ian Toner and our entire Fulcrum Media crew. Evan Lepler saying good night from a cool Seattle, Washington, where the Cascades victorious in the AUDL's Cross Coast Challenge. Clark's throw right on the money. Mitch Kolzak is college roommates with Jay Frood at the University of Missouri. Simon's throw defended. Bidding on the under, Anson Repperman used his speed to get there. And now Pittsburgh will call